And
Yeah, and sometimes because they're so big, people actually put explosives inside the body to blow it up to help break it up so they can take it away. So like
quite the job. That's what.
yeah, like if
What
something's
do you do for your
100
day job? I blow up whales.
and the big one that everybody repeats is that it's X% human skin.
It's skin. Is that true? That's what I've always heard. That's what I've always heard.
Yeah, this is based on nothing.
Oh, so that's saying be careful with this, otherwise you're getting 7 years of bad luck.
And again, telling people, oh, they're very expensive, don't drop it, doesn't equate. But telling people if you'll get 7 years bad luck if you drop it, and they will do anything not to drop it. Salt.
Salt was expensive.
Salt used to be really expensive. Roman soldiers used to get paid in salt.
In salt.
That's why it's called a salary.
What do you mean?
Sal, it's salt in that.
No way.
That's where the word comes from. And to earn your salt, or to be someone's worth their salt. Do you ever hear that old expression?
Yes.
It's because it costs so much. Because it was vital. You needed it to preserve food.
Hello and welcome to A Normal Meets a Nerd with me, Dylan Evans, a very normal person who loves asking those abnormal questions you definitely wants to know the answer to.
And me, Darragh Ennis, king of the nerds, who sometimes knows the answer to those questions, but if I don't, we'll have a chat about it anyway.
Yeah, and this is something a little bit different what we're doing here. We are communicating via satellite. How would you describe this?
Yes, we're going out over the ether, as I'm in Oxford and you're in Liverpool. Normally I just couldn't make it up to Liverpool, so we thought we'd give this newfangled Zoom call thing a try. I don't think it'll catch on.
Zoom. No. Zoom's dead. No, I always find this. So one thing that always frustrates me, this is satellite. This is Bing up, satellite, Bing down.
Yeah.
That's mad.
It is, isn't it?
That's mad. And whenever I see on the news, there'll be like someone FaceTiming an astronaut, and I'm like, how is their signal that good in space? And in my kitchen, I can't get any phone signal.
Well, they're closer to the satellites, to be fair.
Oh, would they have faster Wi-Fi? Because it doesn't have to travel as far.
Yeah, and there's nothing, and it's NASA. They've probably got a decent router and stuff. They're not running off dial-up.
Yeah.
You'd have to though. Imagine being up in space. You can't get anything. The least you need is to be able to watch Netflix without a buffering.
Yeah, that's not what they're doing up there. I always think, what are they doing up there? They're all frauds.
They work
are frauds.
So much.
They just float about and eat crisps like Homer Simpson.
No. Have you never seen this about how strict they are about the food? So you're not allowed to have anything that'll make crumbs. Anything. So crisps are dead out. Bread is dead out. They spent an absolute fortune to make a special kind of bread that doesn't crumb when you eat it.
Why can't you have crumbs?
Because it floats and it gets into everything. So do you know the way
it just all be crumbs?
Imagine
swimming through crumbs.
Like I've got kids; they're not allowed to eat when they're on the laptop because otherwise there's bits everywhere. Now imagine that, like all the bits that you brush off your t-shirt, every single one of them floating around into vents, blocking up filters, all that kind of stuff. They have to be really careful about it.
So is all that food like toothpaste based? That's in my head. A lot of it is toothpaste.
Yeah, a lot of it is like kind of paste and gels and stuff. Yeah. So and one of the astronauts in like the 70s sneaked like a ham sandwich or a bologna sandwich inside his suit, and he got into a load of trouble for it. They were always sneaking stuff on. It was great. I love them.
Would you do that? Would you go to the space station and stuff?
I'd love to, but I think I'd be too much of a coward. It's too dangerous.
What do you mean?
The odds of you dying on a trip to space are quite high.
Are they really?
Yeah,
on the way up. Is it on the way up? You're not dying up there. If you get up there, you're
if you get up there, you're probably all right. But
right.
Actually making it to space, it's not as dangerous as it used to be, but still, there's a reasonably high chance of dying. I'd love to be on it though. I really, really would. You'd love to be up and have a look around and to float around weightless. It'd be brilliant. But I'm an absolute wimp. I think I'll leave it.
Give that one a miss. NASA, if you're watching, we're sorry. We said no.
And just for people who are listening, this is not structured. This is completely random. We didn't mean to talk about space at all.
There you go. Should we get into some questions?
Yes.
Let's get into some questions. Go on.
Right. So our first one is from one of our listeners on TikTok, Millie. Weirdly has a normal name on TikTok. Not very usual, but Millie on TikTok asked a brilliant question is, would it take a blue whale longer to die of a virus than a human?
That's an unbelievable question, by the way.
Never thought of this.
Neither have I. I think that's a dead good question.
It is brilliant.
Boy, they're big. They're big.
I think we need to start this before we get into the virus and thing is to discuss how big they actually are, because I don't think people appreciate it.
Are they the biggest ever thing?
They're the biggest ever animal, yeah.
That's nuts. So there was nothing in dinosaur times. There wasn't like a
No,
mega blue whale.
not in length. In length, maybe, but not in weight or mass. In
How
terms of
big are we
sheer mass.
talking? I know you always hear about it, like, oh, the heart is a car or something
Yeah, their heart is
stupid.
literally the size of a car,
That
and
makes no sense.
the big blood vessel coming out of it is big enough to swim through.
A blood vessel?
Yeah,
What?
a medium-sized human like you or me, someone who isn't all that like massive, could squeeze through the aorta, the big one that comes out of the top of their heart.
That's insane. How big's the brain?
Their brain is massive. It's absolutely massive. So they're three times longer than a bus, basically. That's how long they are.
Stupid.
And they weigh coming up on 200 tons, metric tons. So a lot of people don't realize that you need to break this up. So that is about 30 large elephants in terms of weight. Or I prefer this one,
Squad.
over 3 million Mars bars.
3 minutes. That's a good one. That's how I always, if I ever need something weight comparison,
Yeah.
I'm like, what's the Mars bar ratio on that?
Yeah, so like its tongue is 5 meters long. And like I'm 2 meters long or less than 2 meters long. So it's two and a half of me long. You know, their fart bubbles are big enough to contain a horse.
I've never thought of their fart bubbles. I'm not gonna lie.
Well,
So with the brain being so big, are they not more intelligent?
well,
Could they not be like? Not that we'd know. We wouldn't know, would we?
no, it's very hard to measure intelligence anyway.
Mm.
But scaling up brain size isn't necessarily a good way. So like crows are really smart. They're
Yeah,
like
and they got bird
proper clever, and
brains.
they've got tiny little brains.
Bird brains, true.
It's about how big the brain is relative to your size and how much
Mhm.
of it is in like the problem solving kind of thing. Whales and dolphins are very intelligent. They can be trained really, really well. Some of them are in
Mm.
the military for like, the US
Yeah,
has dolphins and Russia uses dolphins in its
with
navy.
laser beams on their head. Is that what they're like?
Yeah, yeah, but
Freaking laser beams.
and they can be properly trained, but like yeah, they are properly smart, but they are so stupendously huge. Like
Why? I know that sounds like a pretty rubbish question. Why
because
are they that big? Why do they? Nothing has to be that big,
well, when you're that big, you don't have predators.
right? But
You're
why
too
wouldn't
big to
everything
eat.
then be big? Yeah, true. I guess.
It's like, if there's slices of cake and one is like half the cake. You don't take that. You just can't.
No,
Like
true.
you wouldn't go into it. And they effectively don't have predators. They're completely invincible. And because they live in the water, the weight their weight is supported. This is why beached whales don't do very well because the water actually buoys them up.
Mm.
They're not physically capable of things can't be that big on land as animals have evolved to be so far. So like
So they need the water.
yeah, their bones won't be able to handle it. Their organs would collapse, all that kind of stuff. So they need the water for buoyancy. So they're that big because they can be, and it makes them basically impregnable to any sort of predation. Once they're adults, nothing goes after a blue
Nothing
whale. I,
touches the boys.
I wouldn't pick a weight with 3 million Mars bar sized animal.
No, I think I would actually. When they get beached, don't they blow up?
They can do, but all
I've
animals
seen
can
one
do.
just blow up.
Well, when you die, you start to rot and you fill up with gases and you bloat.
Oh, so is that what it is? And then it
Yeah,
just
and sometimes because they're so big, people actually put explosives inside the body to blow it up to help break it up so they can take it away. So like
quite the job. That's what.
yeah, like if
What do
something's
you do for your day job? I blow up whales.
like 100 tons of animal, like if you ever tried to lift up one of your mates who's passed out, it's really
Yeah.
hard. And
Yeah. Well, if you ever fell asleep on your arm and you've got a
yeah,
full dead arm, if I
yeah.
pick my arm up, I'm like, wow, we're heavy, aren't we?
Now imagine
Dense.
something that's a couple of 100 tons trying to shift it.
Yeah.
So you need to break that up. But anyway, we need to get back to Millie's question.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you said they're invincible,
So,
but what about viruses and stuff? Does it
viruses
take
are
longer?
one of the funniest things about viruses is how small they are compared to a blue whale. So
Tiny. How many Mars bars?
so much a tiny fraction. So a lot
Less.
like the biggest viruses we'll discount, but the average virus, the one that gives you like a cold and stuff, they're in the
Mm.
nanometer range. So
Right.
this is a nanometer is a millionth of a millimeter. So
Too small doesn't make sense. Go
a
on.
millimeter, the small little marking on your ruler, a million of these could fit inside them. But they're
Yeah.
usually in the like 100 to 200 range. So you're talking something that is way too small for most microscopes to see. You have to get
Mm.
specialist equipment.
The big
Uh,
boys.
but and end to end, if you laid these kind of viruses out, there'd be 30 billion of them before you hit the end of a blue whale. So they are much, much smaller. But whales and dolphins and big animals and humans get viruses and it can really devastate them.
Mm.
So the question is, will its size help? And
Yeah.
I like one of the best things about this question is I did some research on this and no one's answered it before. So
Yeah, I've never thought about it. I've
we're
never heard
completely
this
shooting
question.
blind. But the thing about it is that cells are the same. So a whale cell and our cells will look almost exactly the same. They've just
Mm,
got a lot more of them.
yeah.
And viruses are brilliant at attacking cells. So how they work is they invade into a cell, they hijack it, and they turn it into a factory for making more viruses.
Nice.
And then the viruses come out and infect all the other cells, and it spreads and spreads and spreads. And unless your immune system cracks down on it, it'll just keep going.
Mm,
And that's exponential, because a small number of viruses get in and they produce millions, and then those millions spread and produce millions. So you produce more and more of them. So my guess is that there will be a lag time. There's a time when the whale isn't really sick, the viruses are just working away. And in humans, that's probably, the way you get sneezed in the face by, well, I get sneezed in the face by my children, or, you pick
yeah.
up something, and there's a
Yeah.
day or two where you're fine and then you feel
Yeah.
sick. I would think that that period would probably be a little bit longer in a
Ah,
blue whale
yeah.
because
That's
it's
what I mean.
so big.
Theoretically, it would.
Just because it's so big. And
Mm,
I'm not basing this on any measurement or scientific fact that I know. This is just an intuition thing. So I think, Millie, the
that's what we
basic
want.
answer is it would probably take it a little bit longer to die, but not massively longer
Lovely.
because once the lag period's over, the virus is in there. So
That's
it
it.
would be able to hold off of getting a whale cold for a couple more days, I think, and then it'll be just like us.
That's why you're the chief nerd. That's why you're the chief nerd. I like that working out. I like that working out.
Nice.
Are these
Uh,
all from listeners, by the way?
no, I've a few that aren't. So we have another one that we can do, which I think one of the guys in the office, I think Joe might have said this.
Oh, go on.
Um, how do barcodes and QR codes work?
I seen this. I seen this one, and this is one of those. In my head, it scans, and I've just always took that for granted. I've never thought too much into it. Something there's like a laser, something beeps. It's just it scans. What does that
Yeah,
mean, though? I don't know
yeah.
what that means.
It's something that is so normal in our life that we completely take it for granted. We just
Mhm.
accept, oh, it works. This is fine.
Ding.
Yeah, that'll
Yeah,
do.
yeah.
But the weird thing is that they don't exactly do this, but they kind of scan the white bits and not the black bits. So a
What do you
barcode's
mean?
black and white
Yeah,
line.
yeah, 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 yeah.
And there's
Wait, it scans the white.
yeah, kind of. So when the laser hits it, it measures the reflection of it. So the laser bounces onto the black and white, and it measures the reflection that comes
Mm,
off the laser that bounces back. But the dark bits actually absorb the laser, and the bits that go into the reader are the white bits. Now it's scanning the whole thing effectively.
yeah.
Realistically, it's how wide those white bits are compared to the black bits. It's a contrast that it measures. So the white
Right.
bits are just as important as the black bits. Everyone thinks it's only the black bits. And
Yeah,
it
no,
doesn't
so
have
did
to be
I.
black and white. It can be any color. It just, if the colors are too close to each other, it won't be able to get that contrast. So if it was blue and green or something, it might not pick it up. So
Ah,
black and white is the most effective, but it can be any color. So some products you see, they build the barcode into their label and it could be
mm.
like red and white or,
Yeah, true,
purple and white or
actually.
something. So it's that contrast that it measures. And it's
Mm.
able to figure out how wide the lines are. And it's the width of the lines that gives you the numbers.
That's mad. QR codes always confuse me. It's
Yeah.
like, especially if you do it from like a telly from your phone and stuff. QR
Yeah.
codes baffle me. I don't really get that.
Well, they work largely the same way, but to stick with barcodes for a second,
Go on.
they're very standardized. I don't think a lot of people know this.
What
There's
do you mean?
12 there, so barcodes on products are usually 12 digits long. So if
Mm.
you go to any supermarket, anything, you look at the barcode, it's usually 12 numbers. And the first few numbers are actually encode the manufacturer. It's the brand. That's all it is. It's like, so if it's a Mars bar, it'll be the Mars company. If it's, milk, it'll be the
Oh,
dairy. And every product made by that company will have the same, I think it's the first four, five, six
it's a bit like a
numbers.
postcode. We like
Yeah.
almost like a postcode.
And that's the manufacturer. And that narrows it down right down to their products. Then the next few numbers are the item numbers. So that's, you know, again, I'm stuck on Mars bars because of the blue whale.
It's very
Um,
Mars bars heavy this episode. Send us
if
some
you,
Mars bars.
yeah, if you're from Mars, we accept money or chocolate as sponsor.
Yeah.
And the first product, the product number then is the sort of catalog number of that
Mm.
manufacturer's thing. And then the very last one is actually a check number. So this is usually a number that makes sure that it's been scanned correctly and the whole barcode is correct and it's not like upside down or sideways or something. So um, that's how normal barcodes work. And the
Mm.
first one didn't appear until 1974.
The 70s.
Yeah, that's the first time we used them.
Oh no, it's older in my head.
Yeah,
I'm thinking 50s or
I
something.
was as well. I was as well, but it's actually the
The
70s. And
70s. So
yeah,
when
and
did they catch on? They mustn't have caught on for a while.
no, for a long time, because you have to think about the implementation of it, the this sort of tech that has to be put into shops and
Mm.
all that. So a lot of the time, things like this are actually brought in for inventory rather than for sales. So it's
Yeah,
like
yeah,
in the
yeah.
factory they do them.
To
And
log stuff.
the very first one was on chewing gum. It was on Wrigley's chewing gum.
They had the first one.
They had the first barcode. Yeah,
That's mad.
yeah.
I thought it'd be something more important.
Yeah, no, the first sort of commercial barcode was on Wrigley's chewing gum. There you go. And then the problem with that though is that there's 12 numbers and you need 4 or 5 or 6 or whatever for the manufacturer. There's actually very little data, very little information you can store on a standard barcode. It's 12
Mm.
numbers and that's it. And that's a lot of numbers, it's into the billions.
Yeah, yeah,
But
true.
QR codes were able to make it, instead of it being one dimensional, make it two dimensional. And that massively increased the amount of information you can put on it. So, but it works effectively the same way. So it's able to check the contrast, which is why it's nearly always in black and white. And it
Yeah.
uses that to read in digits. The big squares, there's three big squares. So you look at any QR code, there's three big squares.
Oh yeah, 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 yeah.
And they're to orient it. So they go, I think it's top left, top right, bottom left
What do you
on a
mean?
QR code. So those three squares are always in the same three corners.
And then the
So
rest of it's the
it means if you
gobbledygook.
scan it sideways, if your phone is sideways or upside down, when you scan it,
Ah.
it knows which way is up. So they're just to orient it so that the scanner knows, okay, this way is how it's meant to be read. And then all the little dots are binary, yes or no, one or zero, and it's able to
Oh,
store
so it works
loads
the
more
exact
information.
same, basically.
It
This
works
is a lot more
basically the same.
complex than I thought, by the way.
Yeah,
In my head, it scanned that. I was happy with that.
yeah,
Now
it
I'm thinking
does.
about ones and
It,
twos too
it
much.
does
I don't
work,
like
and
this.
this was invented by no surprise here, a Japanese company.
Of course.
And they had a very automated inventory system. They were a car parts manufacturer, so they made parts for like the big Japanese manufacturers.
Mm.
And it was able to replace lots and lots of barcodes, which is what was on their boxes, with one that
The
gave
one little one.
tons and tons more information. And then they realized very quickly, for marketing purposes, you could make a very complicated web address into a single
Yeah,
QR code.
true.
So instead of people having to copy and paste or type in a very long web address, you could take
Mm.
it not just to your main website, but to an actual product or an event
Scan this
straight away.
QR code.
And people, being the lazy monsters that we are, prefer that. So
When's this? Is this 90s? Is this how
yeah,
recent
yeah,
is a QR code? It
kind of
feels
90s.
very new to me.
Well, the reason why it feels new is because whatever about in like places like a car company or a manufacturing facility where they will have expensive equipment to read them, actual good camera phones that have good processing ability are relatively recent.
Oh, so that's what stopped the QR code
So the QR
popping
code
off
was
back in the day.
from being massive, from being used so
Yeah, so
regularly.
we didn't have the tech, but the QR code
Yeah.
was there.
So the humans had the tech, but you didn't have it in your pocket. You
Oh,
needed a laser scanner is fairly simple, but you needed an actual proper
Yeah.
image scanner. And my first phone, like I've seen some of the pictures. They look like Minecraft pictures. So, but and I'm not that old. I'm a bit older than you, but I'm not that old. So when was the first sort of, big smartphone thing? That was 15 years ago
If
when people
that, yeah.
started really having them. And that's why they seem so recent. They were around before that. We just couldn't use them.
Mad.
Yeah.
We are learning here today. She's always saying this. What is dust? Where does dust come from? What is dust?
Yeah. So Lorraine on TikTok, our good friend who wants to know. And there's a lot of mad theories out there where dust comes from. And the big one that everybody repeats is that it's X% human skin.
It's skin. Is that true? That's what I've always heard. That's what I've always heard.
Yeah. This is based on nothing.
No, don't say this.
Yeah.
Is it not?
There's not like the idea that people had that it was 80-90% human skin is not true because it depends. I hate saying that because I always say that. It depends. It depends on where you are, what
Mm.
country you live in, what the weather's like outside, what happens in the building that you're in. You can go into the ancient Egyptian tombs when they're first opened and they're filled with dust, you know,
That's true. I've never thought
and
about
there's not
this.
humans wandering around there. So,
I've never thought about this. This is one of them
yeah,
things I've always had in
it
my head.
is.
Well, that's skin. Chop,
Yeah.
chop. Put
Now,
that away.
if you happen to have a certain sort of disorder and your skin is flaking away all the time, I've got
Mm.
psoriasis in my head, so I'm always dandruffy. You're going to have quite a bit of skin.
Yeah.
But this is a bit bleak, but everything wears away over time. We are heading in entropy towards nothingness. That's what happens to the
Well,
universe.
there's the vibe. Set the
Yeah.
tone
The
there. There
happy
we go.
morning vibes for the listeners of the
Yeah.
ANMAN podcast. But yeah, stuff wears away. It happens. You know, everything wears
Mm.
down. And when it does, it breaks into little pieces. And if those pieces are small enough, they get knocked up into the air and they're dust. So,
Mm.
you know, sometimes it could be dust from the Sahara. If you get a storm over Europe and over North Africa, you can get dust on your car from the Sahara, you know,
Mm.
bits of soil, broken down things, lots comes off your clothes, bits of hair as well as skin. Pollen's a big part of dust. Fungal
Well,
spores,
maybe.
dead bacteria. There's loads of stuff. Dust is made up of whatever happens to be around. So it's just as likely to be bits of the soil from your front garden that you wipe your shoes on the mat and they get sprayed into the air as it is to be from your skin. You do shed a lot of skin though.
You do.
Yeah, on a
I don't
constant
think. I
basis.
don't think I do. I don't think I
You
do.
you do. Everybody does. Your
Yeah.
skin, your epidermis comes off. It just comes off in really fine particles. You don't notice. So unless you're
So
like scrubbing and exfoliating all the time,
yeah, I don't.
bits of it come off. You
We're
do.
always
You wear a ring.
peeling. We're
Yeah, we
always
are.
peeling.
We are always peeling off. Yeah, we are exposing our fresh inner layers. But yeah, most of it comes from outside in most houses. Whenever they've done studies on this, it's usually soil and pollen and bits of leaves and grass and all that kind of stuff.
So it's not all skin,
No, a bit of it's skin, but yeah,
but not enough to where you'd say it is. I can't
no.
believe that. How many people watching this will be like, "No, it's dead skin. I know this." That's one of them
There's
things I always felt like I was smart with knowing.
there's
And you've
there's
took
a
that away from me now. You took that away from me. That was my one thing I had for this episode.
there's a lot of things that, you know, people who went to the school of the guy in the pub told me, or the university of it just makes
I'm
sense.
that guy in the pub.
And until the internet came, we believed all this stuff. So it
True.
became entrenched in our minds that this is true.
Ah.
And this is one of them that's kind of partly true and makes sense. So it
Mm.
kind of stuck around. But yeah, it's dust is almost never 80 or 90% human skin. It's mostly just a little bit.
Nice, nice, nice. That's good. That I like that one. I like that one.
It is not bad.
I've got one here, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
Why are some things considered to be bad luck, like walking under a ladder, spilling salt, walking past a black cat, all of that nonsense? Where's that come from? What is that?
Yeah, humans are weird.
Hmm.
So some of them make sense. Some of them make a lot of sense. And humans don't make sense. So if you want humans to be sensible, telling them not to do something because it makes sense is a really bad way to do it.
Yeah.
Humans are belligerent and difficult and unbelieving and will question everything and won't just listen to sense. So
Yeah.
it's an awful lot easier if you tell them it's unlucky or God will be mad at them
Yeah.
or something like this. It will stick in their heads way more than just to keep you safe.
Yeah, but I do a few of these. I do a few of them.
Mm.
Like to the bad luck, like walking under the ladder or scaffolding. I can't do it. I'm detouring.
But that's common sense. And there's a very good reason for that. It's because people work up on top of ladders and scaffolding, usually with heavy stuff. And if they drop it and it lands on your head, it can kill you. It can be fatal. So walking under a ladder is a risky thing to do for no particular reason.
So we just say, "Oh, it's bad luck. Don't do it."
So if you tell people not to do it because it's unsafe, they'll go, "Oh, health and safety gone mad. I walk under ladders every day and nothing bad happens." But tell them it's unlucky and they'll run like a mile around it.
What about breaking a mirror? That's one, isn't it? That's a big one.
That's a big one that everybody still talks about. And that goes back historically. And the reason why is because people who had mirrors were rich and they were expensive. If you wanted to get a proper mirror, they were usually very expensive. You had like polished metal mirrors, you know, like polished,
Not a mirror,
but a mirror, painted glass, modern mirrors, until relatively recently, like about 100 years ago or so, were really, really, really expensive to get made. And they had to be shipped, and a lot of them got broken while they were shipping, which made them more expensive. They cost a fortune.
Oh, so that's
So,
saying be careful with this, otherwise you're
so
getting 7 years of bad
yeah.
luck.
And again, telling people, oh, they're very expensive, don't drop it, doesn't equate. But telling people
Mm,
if you'll get 7 years bad luck if you drop it, and they
seven
will do
years.
anything not to drop it. And that's what it
Yeah.
was. And it's the same with salt. Salt
Our
used
salt
to
was
be
expensive.
salt used to be really expensive. Roman soldiers used to get paid in salt.
In salt.
That's why it's called a salary.
What do you mean?
Sal, it's salt in Latin.
No
Mm.
way.
That's where the word comes from. And to earn your
No
salt or to
way.
be someone's worth their salt. Do you ever hear that
Well,
old expression?
yes,
It's
yes.
because it costs so much because it was vital. You needed it to preserve food. And you
That
couldn't just,
salary thing's mad. That's blowing my mind. There.
yeah, it is. It's
That's
one of those
cool.
things. Salt was really, really expensive. And weirdly, salt and inflation have been very closely linked over the years. So the cost of salt in pounds, in the number of pounds,
Mm,
hasn't changed all that much over like centuries. But the value of that pound has dropped. So salt is now really cheap. But
mm.
if say it costs you, a pound for a kilo of salt, it would have cost you a pound for a kilo of salt like a couple of 100 years ago when a pound was a very large amount of money.
Oh,
Because it's
right.
it's just got cheaper and cheaper over time. Not exactly, but close enough in
Yeah.
line with inflation. So yeah, so salt was
Wow.
really expensive. So there was a lot of things about spilling salt and being careful with it. And yeah,
Mm,
and that was how it was. But generally they just make sense.
yeah.
They're just sensible things.
What I don't get, what's with the black cat thing? Is
So
that
this
witches?
this is
In my
witches.
editor,
This
witches.
is witches. So this is a religious, superstition
This
where
is witches.
where basically they were considered to be, dark and hard to see, and they were thought to be familiars of witches or the devil himself. Now,
Mm.
I'm a dog person and I kind of agree with this. Cats are the devil.
No, no, we're not having this argument. We're not having
They
this
will
argument.
eat you before you're cold if you die
So
in a
will a
room with them.
dog.
No, they
Dogs
won't.
will. Yes, they will.
Okay,
Yes, they will.
around the world, there are loads and loads of examples of a Grey Forest Bobby or the one in Japan where the loyal dog sat and waited for its owner who died. Do you know how many of them are cats? Not one. The
Dogs
cat is
don't.
already
No.
moving on to the next person who can use a tin opener.
It's because dogs don't need us. I mean, cats don't need us as much, do they? I
No.
understand why dogs are more loyal, whereas a cat is fine by itself. It's such a good hunter. They're so independent. Whereas a dog, I feel like relies on us.
Well, one of the fun things is that if you think of the psychology of cats, besides the pure evil, the they
Not
don't
even not having this.
they don't meow at each other.
No, nah, right. Cats are so deceptive. I think cats are a lot smarter than they let on. And they
So
play little cute,
yeah,
they make little cute noises. They imitate babies, I think.
they think we're babies.
They think we're
There's a
babies.
theory, there's an idea out there, right? Because adult cats don't meow at each other,
No.
but they meow at their kittens, and kittens meow at each other.
Oh.
And they will also do things like bring you presents of dead animals,
Mm.
basically because they think you're a bit of a rubbish cat and you're not doing very well, and it's showing you how to hunt, and there's a favor for you. And yeah, they domesticated us, not the other way around.
Yeah, I was speaking about this the other night because I think another thing with cats, if you're around somewhere with cats, there's a lot less rats and disease theoretically, is there
Yeah.
not? So did we lean into where cats were more so with primates? And I think are they one of our first fears? Because you think of eyes in the dark, don't you?
Well,
One of the most old school fears, I think, is pitch black eyes, and that's a
and
cat.
and I think this might be part of why people are suspicious of black cats because they fade into the darkness so well, and all you can see are eyes.
Eyes, yeah.
And linked as well to the witch thing, I think that's largely where it comes from. But
Mm.
in some cultures, they're not unlucky; they're actually lucky. Black cats.
Cats.
So
Black cats are.
In Japan, black cats are considered very lucky,
Oh,
and in Scotland they are as well. Weirdly, in parts of rural Scotland,
all right.
but in England they were considered very good luck if you were in the navy
Why?
because they kept rats down on ships.
Ah, of course. Of course, yeah.
So weirdly, because normally, like in certain centuries across England, the navy kind of dominated everything.
Mm.
And normally, like even the way we say things, like your three sheets to the wind, batten down the hatches, all that stuff comes from the navy. Weirdly, the love of like black cats didn't transfer. But that was one thing that stuck.
Oh,
But I think, yeah, it's down to witches. But
all right.
in general, basically, people are superstitious and they cling on to superstitions much more than common sense. So if you can hijack
Mm.
superstitions for some common sense, everybody wins and nobody breaks your mirrors.
Do you believe in any of them? Yeah, I
No,
don't think you do at all.
no,
Not
like
one.
I think it's very good sense to not walk under ladders.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
all do make sense. One thing I
But
do, and I hate that I do it, is I salute a magpie. And I don't know why. I picked it up from my mum. My mum does it, and I didn't know my mum done it. I seen it like what I seen her do, and I was like, I do that. I blatantly picked it up from her, and I don't know why I do it, but I can't not. I seen five the other day. I done this. I was saluting. I looked like a lunatic,
well,
and I don't know what that is.
well, the magpie rhymes are brilliant, and there's more than one. There's a lot more than one. They're regional
One
and
for
local.
sorrow, two for
Two for
joy,
joy,
three for
and
the
that's
girl.
that's the main one. That's the one that's more prevalent. But there's other ones. It's like one for sorrow, two for mirth, three for a funeral, four for a birth. There's loads and loads of different ones, tons and tons. I read this in Terry Pratchett book. It was great. But the weird thing is the reason why people think one is unlucky and it's sorrowful. I've been told this because on TikTok, our interactions, they're great, is that magpies tend to mate for life. And if you see one on its own, it means that its mate has died. That's what someone's told me.
Oh,
Now, I don't know how true
that's
that
bad.
is. And
I
that's
hope
why
not.
it's one for sorrow and two for joy. But yeah,
Okay, I
but they
can
are
believe
just
that.
birds. Yeah, they are
True,
just
that's a
birds.
fact. We are
That is a
dealing in
fact. Yeah,
facts.
we are dealing in facts. But yeah, I don't believe in luck, but I believe in magpies. They exist.
Yes, true, true.
So I think we'll finish with a little kind of shower thought, also from Joe, our mate from Bolt.
Go on.
Um, what are gut feelings?
So like intuition kind of
Yeah,
thing. Like, oh, I've got
what
a
is
bad
that?
feeling about this.
Yeah, and
Yeah, I get stuff like that sometimes.
I think everybody does to a greater or lesser extent. And I get it, like I get it on the chase. I say, oh, I had a gut feeling that was that one. Something was telling me. And I don't think that's as weird as it may seem. And this is one where people start to think all sorts of bonkers stuff about it being,
Psychic.
yeah, psychic or mental communication between humans or, an angel telling you or something. But
Mm.
I just think this is your own mind trying to give you a poke about something. So I think,
Almost like your instinct.
yeah, I think that we have a lot of information that we don't directly process, but that we
Right.
pick up. I think we pick up little things. I think we notice little things subconsciously. So we notice that, or we know something, but our conscious mind is too busy doing something else. And it's kind of just going, hey,
Right.
watch out. Yeah.
Right, okay.
And, things that we see in peripheral vision, all that kind of stuff. And
So
I
we've
think
we've picked it up, but we haven't picked it up,
we
picked it
haven't
up.
registered that we've picked it up.
Yes, okay.
And I think that that's what it is. I think it's something that you've half forgotten or didn't really notice, and your brain is trying to make sense of it, but it doesn't have a very hardwired fact to pick it out.
Mm.
And I think that's what it is. And a lot of the time, we have intuition or gut feelings about either subjects we know quite a lot about. You have an idea and you think so.
Yeah.
Your mind is adding related things together and sort of trying to find a map to it, or it's about people. And one of the things about people is that we use a lot of non-definitive cues. We use body language, we use
Right.
tone, we use things like that are very hard to quantify.
Yeah.
And sometimes you can get a good or a bad feeling about someone, not
See,
because of what they say, but
so I think I think I'm really good at this. I'll judge someone after 5 seconds of saying hello to them, and I feel like I can tell exactly what that person is.
yeah.
And I don't
And
know why. And I'm just picking. Am I just picking up on bits of body language, bits of because I don't get why, and I'm very usually right. I'm like, oh no, they're a bit. I don't trust them. Trust
yeah,
them. Oh, he's nice. I feel like I'll pick up on that really
and
quick.
sometimes you can pick up if someone's lying or not,
Yeah.
even if yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
And that's
Definitely.
an intuition that could be based on like micro expressions and all that kind of thing. And a lot of people who talk about, having near misses with serial killers and stuff,
Mm,
a lot of them say, now some of this is probably added in afterwards or something, but a lot of them say something wasn't right.
yeah.
I don't know what it was. I
Don't
can't
know
put my
what.
finger on it,
Yeah.
but it's
Yeah.
probably some little thing. And the little things register with our subconscious way more than our conscious mind. I think it's your subconscious basically poking you in the back and handing you a note going, this is
That
what,
scares me. That though, because like you're almost saying like we're smarter than we think. Like there's almost something going on behind our brain, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think
Because
sometimes,
if I'm thinking it, I'm thinking it.
yeah, yeah, I
That
think
doesn't make sense. I
sometimes,
sound like a
I know what
lunatic.
you mean. I think sometimes we can overanalyze stuff with our conscious mind and we can become very biased very quickly.
Mm.
And I think sometimes trusting your instincts is a good idea. Going with your gut sometimes is a good idea.
So as a science man, you'd say go with your gut.
Not always.
Well, no, it's yes or no. This is yes
No,
or no.
I think sometimes, if you're unsure about something,
What did your gut say about that question?
my
What
gut
was your
said, be very careful because what will happen now is someone will go jump off a bridge or, or something. Because sometimes you can have other cues from your brain that aren't so good.
Mm,
But like, don't break any laws or anything. But if you're unsure of a decision and there's not massive consequences either way, going with your gut isn't the
go
worst thing
with
to
your
do.
gut. Go for the high offer on the chase. That's
Well, it depends. If you want to win money, don't go for the high offer on the chase. Statistically speaking, you won't.
Thank you so much for listening to A Normal Meets a Nerd.
And remember, a lot of these questions came from you, the listener, and we are not capable of thinking up of the bonkers stuff that you guys do.
No,
Like,
I've
no,
tried. I've
even
tried.
if we try, even if you go into ChatGPT and go, ask me some ridiculous questions, it's nowhere near as good as you guys. So get on the socials, make sure you give us a follow and put the questions in. We need questions for the next episode.
Yeah, get involved. Get
Yeah.
involved.
So our first ever at distance pod, and I think it was a big success.
It felt like you were in the room with me, Darragh.
Yes. My gut told me that we were together. Now, I'm talking to the dog, by the way. I am recording a podcast now in a minute. That means no dicking around, no clicky clacking. You just get into your bed and have a rest. Don't be barking or anything. All right? Good girl. Pain in the arse, Joe. She is. Pain in the arse.